All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order for the Nisswa Planning Commission Board of Adjustment for Tuesday, February 7th, 2023. Roll call, please.
Jesse Zahn,
Sean Weldon,
Josh Young,
Gary Harris,
John Taylor, David Reese,
Maggie Wentler,
Bethany Soderland.
are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
No.
Being none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
so move.
second,
All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Next, to approve the meeting minutes for January 3rd, 2023. Are there any corrections or additions to those minutes?
No.
Just one. Line 11. Young was absent last meeting.
Yes.
Harris called it order, so. I know, I'm good. Other than that, great minutes.
I entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So move.
second,
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. There is nobody present in the gallery, so I'll move past open forum. Moving on to public hearings, I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So move.
second,
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. First item is an ordinance amendment 003-22 to adopt an ordinance amendment modifying chapter 8, article 1 of the Nisswa Code of Ordinances regarding short-term rental regulations and permit requirements with the city of Nisswa. Bethany, your staff report.
Thank you. As you can see in the memo provided, the county repealed their countywide public health regulated short-term rental ordinance and moved it into their zoning ordinance. This requires us to adopt the same language in order for them to administer our short-term rental ordinance. Do you have any questions concerning the verbiage, concerning the proposed amendment or the short-term rental program at all?
I don't think I do, no. But it's worth noting of the limitations that some cities have on turnovers, especially our neighboring city of Lake Shore.
Mhm.
I think a lot of that, I'd like to go on record stating, I think those protections are put in place to protect a great economic asset we have in this backyard of ours is these resorts that employ so many people. They're a huge economic driver, especially in certain months. Is it worth considering a debate to recommend the council to cap these, similar to how Lakeshore does, based off that precipice?
Any changes to this adoption of this ordinance language would require us to take the entire program on as a city. In order for Crow Wing County to administer it, it will have to be basically by their standards
Understood.
and their performance standards in that. So if we wanted to do that, we can at any time, we can repeal this as well. We can administer a short-term rental ordinance on our own. However, in order to have Crow Wing County continue to administer it as they have, we would need to adopt this as is. Now, there are no proposed changes other than the ones through the county that did limit the amount of people per bedroom that they allowed. That was one of the changes this year. The performance standards can be found on their website. So if anybody wants to read through those, you can do that there.
Do you have any idea what the fee basis is that they charge
It's-
for applications?
Yep, it's based per bedroom, to my knowledge. And so they would just take the fees and it would be free of charge for the administration to the city.
No, I mean, we don't, do we know what those fees are dollar wise?
I do not know
much per-
what
per
they are
bedroom?
this year, but it's between $400 and $600, $300 to $600, depending on.
Okay.
And
And this one you say permanent or currently has 28
about 32.
or 32,
Mhm.
32,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes.
how is this enforced? I mean, how do you find out somebody rents 4 or 5 or 6 times?
Well, there's no limit on how many times they can rent.
Okay,
So once they are licensed through the county, they can rent their on an Airbnb or VRBO as many times as they wish. As far as the programs that the county uses, it's my understanding that they have, they are contracted with companies that go through all of the postings and all of the rentals to see if they are licensed. If they're not, the county will send a letter to a property that's being rented on those platforms. And if they're not licensed, they start an enforcement policy or enforcement proceeding at that time. As far as enforcement, there's a hotline there's a 1-800 number that they can, people can call. All that information is posted on Crow Wing County's website.
But if it comes down to a court action, it's up to our legal consultants to do that.
Correct. However, any enforcement and any appeal of any decision would be taken care of on the county level.
Okay.
Jesse, when you said that they limit it, what do you mean?
So similar to what Sean and I were discussing privately earlier is Lakeshore has a limit on how many turnovers are able to be conducted in a given calendar year. So short-term rental, I believe, and Sean, maybe you might know this better than I, and you should speak on it if you if you like, but I believe a short-term rental in their standards or their eyes is a 3-day, 3-night type of rental that is considered a turnover. So check in, check out, and that is capped at 4. They're only allowed to do that. There's obviously ramifications on both sides of that. I want to make this point though, so we can all, address this if there's any opinions on the matter, engage what the rest of this commission thinks in defense, protection, support of the Grandview Lodges, the other smaller resorts that are here. As a traveler, I would sometimes prefer to have an Airbnb or a VRBO than go to a resort or a rental facility of some sort. I know that with the expansion that we're gonna be having in here, there's desired plans for a renovated downtown Nisswa motel that will then turn into a hotel. These types of, with no limitation, granted, I know that we would have our own enforcement on that. That would detract from that business, which would then further detract from potential tax base in which, it's all indirect, I understand, but it is a trickle down. And I just would like to, gauge everybody else's opinion on the matter before we just proceed through. Because I will then also, my intent is to ask the rest of the council when we have our meeting in 2 weeks to gauge what their opinion is on the matter as well. Being the type of town that we are, the type of tourist levels that come in here, especially in peak months. It's a huge economic driving force, so I guess I'll turn it over.
Have we received any feedback from Grandview or any of the smaller resorts?
No.
Well, this comes down to, if we want to modify this to make it fit, what Nisswa likes, and if we want to change it, then we take it over. We have to adopt it ourselves.
We
And it
administer.
comes down to, do we have the staff time and capability of doing that at this point? And do we want to deal with we would get the fees?
Correct.
Is it a big problem?
I don't know.
With 32 rentals at this point.
For what we know, I would also urge to say that, I, as a Nisswa resident, could go put my home on VRBO. How would Nisswa find out? VRBO, Airbnb.
And Crow Wing County would find out. They comb through them, and any postings that aren't licensed get notified. So it's a computer program. I don't know, they generate reports
Well, you
every
have
couple
to-
of weeks. And if you're renting without a license, the county sends a letter.
Sure.
You have to have
Requiring-
staff sitting monitoring the online
Yep.
Airbnb sites.
Well, it's peculiar too. I guess I just thought of it. This also, being Crow Wing County, also encompasses Cross Lake. More or less. It will then also dictate, that region too. And I don't believe that they have a limit on it, but that's not our backyard. I get that, but
Yeah. So when Crow Wing County developed the STR program, they put it in, like the memo says, in their public health ordinance that allowed them to administer that countywide, regardless of the municipality, regardless if they even had provisions that, didn't even allow them or regulated them. A lot of cities didn't like that and wanted Crow Wing County to repeal. So they did. But there are certain cities that we've been pretty happy with what they've done. They have the ability to monitor those postings. They have the ability to have that hotline. They have the ability to enforce that. One of the major parts of or difficulties in limiting the amount is, how do you find out that information? How
Right.
do you enforce that? If we only allowed 4 turnovers in a calendar year at a week at a time, how do you know?
You're
Who
absolutely,
monitors that? And how do we enforce that?
absolutely. And furthermore, adding more to your plate and anybody else within the staffs, the city staff's plate is not an objective here. Just want to present a scenario
Yeah.
in which we want to look out for their best interest, but also those that are renting their homes and having an opportunity to provide themselves some residual income based off of renting their home.
Yep, there's a lot of different sides, a lot of different viewpoints on that. I can tell you that the Crow Wing County analyzes all their septic systems and whether or not they are compliant. So they have that added protection as far as public
Okay.
health as well.
I mean, speaking, we don't have cabins. Most of ours is seasonal camping, so I don't think we really have a lot of skin in the game. But if I was in the cabin business, I probably would have a problem with it. Just because we have to jump through all the hoops to do all the zoning. We have to have inspections done. We have all the costs, all the risks, all the investment. And that's not to say that they shouldn't be able to do it, but if we're opening up competition, it's kind of an unfair advantage.
In regards to an unlimited amount of turnover.
Yes.
Right. And I think that, say if we had Mark Rana here, he's been actively involved with the city and as his position with Grandview over many years, I can imagine putting myself in his position in regards to having, again, unlimited competition that detract from, and we don't have a sales tax in this law. So there's additional fees or taxes that are not being able to be recouped, and then the business is taken away from Grandview, and they're trying to, the massive amount of investment that they've made over there, then perhaps just losing to a guy or a gal that has a property right next door for half the price. It definitely can boil down to an opinion on the matter, and I get that, but it's definitely worth presenting, and I want to make it known that I'm gonna then ask the rest of the council when we meet to gauge what their opinions are on the matter as well too. And if we're able to adjust this and modify this down the road, if there is feedback, which you know how sometimes these things go, we do it, we forget about it, 2 years pass. But that can have a profound effect on these local family-run businesses that have been a staple in these communities of ours, this community of ours, for a long time.
I think whenever we've encountered it previously, I think most of the residential concerns was the enforcement action where if you're having, we had an instance where there was a small former resort and they're just piling people into there and it was disturbing all the neighbors. I think that's more of the resident concern. And I haven't heard if this ordinance has been enforced to that degree where they're getting some enforcement action for noise complaints. I don't know. I haven't heard any complaints. Have you had any feedback on that?
I've gotten no feedback as far as the STRs in Nisswa. I do know during, in the program itself at the county level, they have a 1-800 number where people can call 24 hours a day. That information is funneled to the environmental services staff at Crow Wing County. At that point, usually though, these calls are made at 3 a.m. Nobody's going out there. And at that point, they are encouraged to contact local police as a noise complaint, as you would normally. And then as far as enforcement proceedings, those police reports are collected and filed in their file. They have X amount of, if it happens this many times, then they lose their licensure.
Any other thoughts on the matter from anybody else up here?
If we don't adopt this,
Mhm.
if we don't recommend it, that we're recommending it to the council, correct?
Yeah, you'll
We're
need
not
to either
adopting it.
recommend
But if we
approval
don't,
or
but if
recommend.
the city of Nisswa doesn't adopt this,
We have nothing.
then we have nothing, and short-term rental, anybody can do whatever they want, is that
Correct.
correct? And the county has no influence over it either, even though that it's in their zoning ordinance anymore.
But a
Correct.
solution to that would then be that we adopt our own. Is that not accurate?
Correct.
And then
So
adopt our own
if
enforcement policy.
we
and
have
then
three
follow through.
choices, right? We can adopt this language and have Crow Wing County administer our short-term rental ordinance. We can create our own and enforce it and administer it ourselves, or we can have nothing.
We do that, we're gonna create a new administrative position. Because there's no way that existing staff are gonna be
Oh,
able
for
to
sure.
sit and monitor,
course.
short-term rentals online all day, much less
Well, what is the
course.
city revenue from a fee from this? I mean, is it?
600, she thought.
We will get nothing.
County gets it.
So the county
I know,
collects the
If we
fee.
were to
we
adopt
do
it
it our
as
own.
a city, if the city of Nisswa
Oh,
adopted
I
it.
guess we
We
could
could-
determine our own.
We can
Yeah,
determine
I mean,
our-
we could say it's $1,000 per rental unit.
Now, do these permits and these units that are in short-term rental, there's 32 of them. Are they required to get a new permit every year
annually.
annually?
Yep.
So we're talking $32,000, $30,000 in revenue or fees from this. But
I mean,
out of that
That's if it
30,000.
stays at that. I mean, you could.
I mean,
I
I
know, you could make it 10,000 if you wanted to.
well, I also think it's fair to predict and maybe potentially assume that that number is going to increase over time. I mean, we're going to be seeing more people wanting to put their house on the
Oh,
market for
that-
a rental.
That could be, but we have the ability, if we were to adopt it, the city of Nisswa, and we wanted to change it next month, we could start that.
We could start that
process.
process, yeah. But right now, currently, we have
Change it
no
every month.
provisions
Change it
for
every
the city of
month,
Nisswa.
Okay.
Yes.
Probably that be a good idea, maybe educate the people what the rules are. Cause I didn't know them until I did this. And so if people have rental property, they don't know what the rules are. But I don't know how you notify them because a lot of people are probably outside the state.
When we get calls concerning short-term rental, I encourage them to visit the county website where all the provisions are listed. So all the information that you would need as far as what your requirements are, what you need to have, how many people you can rent to, et cetera, is listed on Crow Wing
City
County.
Website or something, just put a little thing.
Put a
short-term
link.
rentals and-
Yep, I'd be happy to put a link.
But if a
Crown
person
County.
decided to take their house and make short-term rental out of it, and they joined, one of the
PRO.
VBRO or what, whatever organizations are out there, and they put the thing up and they rent it without, then they haven't, it would be up to the city to, the administrator, the staff to find that they've done this, unless somebody turns them in, if the
Correct.
neighbor says, hey, you can't do this, well.
Or is it? Because I mean, I have to assume that with VRBO, Airbnb and any other rental platform, if they have to go through the county level to understand what type of taxes that they need to include on the transaction, county, state level, they must have some sort of log that, or at least an ability to understand local rules and regulations that are in place that say that we enact. Because they're not going to put themselves in a liable situation. The renter clicks, or the homeowner clicks on terms and conditions to be able to abide by what Airbnb puts in place. I'd be curious to see if there's a more corporate back channel between, say, those two organizations, Airbnb and VRBO, to see if there's data that they can then turn over saying, well, actually in 2019, there was 61 different properties that were rented out. 2020, it was 92. To audit more or less. And if there's a good flow of communication, then that could probably alleviate a lot of duty on our end that we're then getting through. And I know I really don't like to add more to these things, but again, I do it out of principle and protecting those that are around us, those businesses that are around us, so. And then again, the flip side is what if a person rents their house out just once? And they rent it out for $1,000. Well, they have $1,000 fee that they have to pay to the city. I mean, that can be applicable too, or we do a per rent. I don't know, go down a rabbit hole on it, of course, but
It seems to me that having something someplace is better than having nothing.
correct. Yeah, it's either Crow Wing County or we determine to adopt our own and
Right.
figure out how to provide them.
But we're not getting married to Crow Wing County on this thing
No,
forever, so. I mean,
No,
it's-
no,
But
at a minimum,
yeah, I think passing on it just doesn't seem to be the right thing to do at this point, but.
I agree with that. And in due time, if we want to take a couple hours and devise a game plan with it
Yeah.
to make a recommendation to council, and be happy to help and
But
dive into that.
the other way, I just see us automatically raising our administrative overhead fees, because you're gonna have new people.
Yep.
You have somebody hired.
That would be a lot of work hours to administer
right.
and enforce.
I mean, you're
an
probably
estimate.
talking even at a minimum, you're talking a position that's $20,000 to $35,000,
Yeah.
minimum.
Yeah, I mean, even if we decided that we as a city would no longer allow them, you would still have to then enforce that.
Yeah, right.
You know,
right.
and comb through
Yeah.
those and find out where that is.
Okay.
I have nothing else on it.
Yeah.
So I would agree with adopting this ordinance for the time being. If we change, we can change later.
By adopting this, what that allows us to do is start the contract process with Crow Wing County to have that administered. I do hope that we will get then feedback from them as far as the amount of people, the amount of complaints received and all of that information as well. Mhm.
And there's no cost to us. for
No
this
cost at this
contractual
time.
obligation. They just get the fees to cover
Correct.
it.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay.
Reiterate that there's nobody in the gallery, so I'm opening and closing public comments. Any other additional questions, concerns? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd move that City of Nisswa Planning Commission Board of Adjustment recommend to the city council the adoption of proposed ordinance amendment 003-22 to adopt an ordinance amendment modifying chapter 8, article 1 of the Nisswa Code of Ordinances regarding short-term rental regulations and permit requirements within the city of Nisswa.
I'll give you a second on that.
And not according to findings of fact, that there are none, right? So,
Yep, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. All right, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So move. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Next item, new business, planning commission appointments.
Thank you. As you know, your planning commission term ended in January, and I would like to ask that the planning commission vote to make a recommendation to the city council to appoint Josh Young to a new 4-year term, running from 2/1/23 to 1/31/27.
Long time.
In addition, Danny Mendel was interviewed on 1/26 for the open planning commission seat. And I would like to ask the planning commission to discuss and make a recommendation to city council.
What is there to discuss?
Well, do you want to give us his background?
Yeah.
So Danny Mendel recently moved to the city of Nisswa about 2 years ago. He works remotely for US Bank. He's looking to get involved in our community. We interviewed him. If Josh or Jesse, either one of you want to comment on your thoughts and your impressions?
I was thoroughly impressed by him. He expressed interest in me in private setting at, nearby restaurants, and he's kind of echoed, which is what Bethany said. He wanted to get engaged, want to get involved with the community. He thought this was a good start. We always have an opening, it seems, on this commission. So of course, that's what came to my head. And I came in on the 26th. We interviewed him. I thought it was a very good interview conducted with him. His responses were good. I think that he is an unbiased individual with no ulterior motive or conflicts of interest within what will be coming our way in his term to come. And again, he is a remote employee for US Bank. So I think that there's a lot that he'll be taking in when we go on site visits, et cetera, and knowledgeable, intelligent. I give
Is
him.
this the person that you were talked about at the last meeting?
Mhm.
Yeah, that you knew somebody who.
Yep.
Moving in, yeah, okay.
Yep. So I would like to see us get him on board, and we will have a full commission.
I appreciated that he has a diverse background, and I think it's important to have a diverse background on the commission just because you bring a lot of different perspectives. I also think it was great that he's not from the area. So like Jesse said, he's coming in fresh, and he knows why he moved up here. So I think he wants to protect some of those vital resources that Nisswa has, and he's able to kind of see a project for it is. So
And on that note, also, I would strongly encourage this commission to put Josh as chair of this commission, and we need to still elect a vice chair, correct?
Correct,
Currently, vice chair is Gary.
correct.
Do we have to reappoint Gary again? Because he was already appointed once before. Earlier this, vice chair.
Probably should make it 4 years, though.
Because every year those will need. to
Yeah,
go on.
we elect officers every year.
Annually.
so.
I need a motion.
Am I able to make
appoint-
motions?
Reappoint Josh, and then I need a second motion to appoint Danny, and then we can talk about chair and vice chair.
I move that planning commission appoint Josh Young as chair. Or not chair, sorry. Appoint him to the planning commission for an addition, another 4-year term. Commencing February 1st, right, 2023.
I second.
Sorry, a second, yeah, second.
Okay.
Abstain.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Moved. I'll make a motion that this is an election or an appointment?
This is a.
Appointment,
Appointment.
that we appoint Josh Young as chair of the planning commission.
Oh, Danny.
Oh, I'm sorry. Make a motion that planning commission recommend the approval of Danny Mandel as new planning committee for a new planning commission seat effective March 1st, is it then, or is it? Do we backdate it to February 1st along with our officer elections or not? What's Danny's effective date?
It would be effective immediately.
Yeah.
I would just put today.
Okay,
And then.
and that also
It has
is
to
4
be
years.
I
approved
was just
by-
gonna ask, is that 4 years, Bethany, or?
I'm not quite sure. I know that there's the one left and I think it's till 2026.
You wanted to stagger it so we
Just-
didn't have them all end at the same
Just make the recommendation and
filling
then
the
we'll
seat.
approve it on,
At
well,
the
we'll,
Council.
Okay,
we'll vote to approve it 2 weeks from now.
Whose seat is he filling? Because it's whatever left of their term.
I think it's Kristen Hansen.
so he'll fill whatever the
Yeah,
term
you guys-
is
you
of
pick-
that.
Yep.
We just want to make sure we don't lose 5 people in 1 year.
Right.
Ideally.
I move we approve Danny Mandel to the
Okay.
to an open seat on the planning commission effective immediately. To whatever term is the staff decides is correct.
I'll second.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, now we have chair and vice chair. Are you gonna continue, Gary?
Sure, I'll recommend that the planning commission appoint Josh Young as chair for 2023. Fiscal 23, whatever it is, through January of 24. I guess I can't abstain, but I'll put my name in for appointment as vice chair for 1 more year.
I'll second.
If somebody else wants this, it's up for grabs.
Okay.
If somebody else wants to be vice chair,
No,
have at it.
fine the way it is.
Maybe Danny would like that. That'd be a
Congratulations.
welcome, Danny. Congratulations.
Don
You should have
said
been
to me
here-
once,
You should have been here at the
rise to the
meeting so you
top.
could vote. But that's the motion.
Who was the second?
I second it.
2 of them.
One of a second. Just,
Abstain.
Aye.
abstain.
Yes.
All in favor? Signify by aye. Aye.
aye.
Little clumsy, but we got through it.
Motion carries.
Okay.
Yeah, old business, none, city planners report.
Can we back up just a Chad? The shoreland ordinance?
Yes,
I got 2 things that have been kind of bouncing around. Can we talk about that?
absolutely.
Because there was a letter received this week from Paul Magnuson, one of the Nisswa resident.
Rasmussen.
Rasmussen.
Sorry, Rasmussen. And that brings up one point, and that comes down to the degree of slopes, 12 being changed to 25. And when Chris Pence was here and we were talking about it, and we went through that area of the changes. And that kind of bounced around on me and I've been thinking about it for a month and I don't know if I'm totally in favor of that big jump. You know, it's based on the fact that all of the good property is gone. And all we've got left is leftover property. Leftover property's got a lot of junk in it, it's got a lot of swamps, it's got a lot of lakes, it's got a lot of severe, got slopes, or severe slopes. And for years, if a person owned that property, which, there's property owners all over that have these properties, and their 12% has been the guideline for severe slopes for considering parts of lots that are being developed. And all of a sudden it changes to 25. Somebody's being treated unfairly here, whether it's that particular landowner or somebody who came before him that was required at 12. And it just
Make it retroactive.
talk me into it, you can, but I mean, it just seems kind of, it's a big jump.
12 to, we are proposing 20%.
Oh, was it 20? Okay, I
Yep,
thought it was
20%. And that is just for the area of a lot.
Right, right. Right.
It's very unheard of to have restrictions of 12% in lot size. Like I said before, this doesn't. So vegetation standards would still apply. Steep slope standards would still apply. So as far as dirt moving, vegetation removal, all of those things, we're not asking to remove those provisions. So a steep slope is defined as 12% or more.
So we're only talking about square footage that's allowed in a lot.
Correct.
That's
And
12 or 20. changing
right,
it.
and if there's 12% in a lot and they're putting a walkout, we would issue a permit
Okay,
to do that.
because I know his letter was called that to in point two, and I was reading it, and I thought, well, I can't disagree with him on this, at first blush.
Yeah, and that's something that we can change. You still have time to, change anything that you want to change, propose changes, all of those things. We could have a provision where we change that so that we do allow for logical development in, let's say, the urban residential zoning. Maybe that 12% stays for riparian lots.
Well,
I mean,
that's
if we want to keep that provision for Lakeshore, we have the ability to put that word riparian in there and still change that to allow for the development that our comprehensive plan wants to
okay,
encourage.
okay.
So as you're thinking about it, if that's
Okay.
something that
No,
you
that's fine.
want to do, you could make a motion tonight to have me change that. You could make a motion at our next meeting when we actually have the public hearing, where you could ask to change that before it goes to city council.
Dave, what's your opinion on switching from 12 to 20?
Well, I think there's two parts to this. There's the engineering and then there's the land subdivision part of it that's more of a surveying, land surveying impact by this change. Obviously, my wheelhouse is in the engineering side of it. So steep slopes, when it comes to the shoreland zone and protection is, I think there's merit in having some restrictions on steep slopes. If your point of protection is that riparian area.
I'm not suggesting that we remove it, I'm just wondering if 12 to 20 is.
Right.
And I'm looking at it more from a practical standpoint of ownership and the subdivision of these properties.
Mhm.
All of a sudden, the number of lots you can have changes for this person, but it held for somebody else,
That-
maybe right next door, that was different.
That's the point I got, Gary, from you and
Yeah.
your background as a surveyor. That's a well-spoken point from the land surveying standpoint, because that changes the rules of the game somewhat for a lot.
I don't know if that would open us up to legal action at some point. Could, I suppose. Say,
I don't know if the city actually,
Arbitrary and
by
capricious.
making a ordinance change, is actually, haven't ever heard of an instance where a city has gotten themselves into a lawsuit.
That's fine. I'm just throwing things out at this point, so.
I have a
Devil's
suggestion.
advocate.
Why not why not gather your thoughts after this meeting, the next coming weeks? And when we reconvene in the month of March, we can have some additional facts that you would like to present per se. And then we can have some further opinions on our end to see if we want to make this modification. I think Mr. Rasmussen is right, and I agree with the logic there, Carrie, I do.
Well, you know, it's, right now it's a draft. You know, we've got a
Mhm.
draft
Yeah,
of the ordinance.
Right,
And now's the time if this thing came out for, you know, the room's gonna be packed in March.
I hope so.
You know, it will
I
be.
hope so too.
It will
Mhm.
be. And if we're doing something other than changing from 12 to 20 or not changing it or moving to 12 to 17 or whatever, you know, I think it shows that we're working with the citizens,
Absolutely.
know,
And
I
and,
echo that sentiment, and
you know, if it's in black and white when they come in, I mean, that's still a motion.
right,
You know, it's a proposal and it can always be changed by the council,
correct.
you know,
But
down the road, but
let's lock it down the right way the first time.
yes.
We don't like opening up we don't
Yeah.
like ripping scabs off wounds. It scars.
And I don't, you know, after you've explained all, you know, where it only applies to square footage of the lot, the number of lots, but if somebody, because of that, somebody got an extra lot or lost a lot because of that,
Yeah.
they might get rubbed a little raw, that's all. And
Yep.
I don't know if it's worth the fight to leave it in. You know, if there's people that are, you know, they're vocal, but they're gonna be vocal, but I mean, it's in writing now, so that there's a.
well, and it's the proposed change, right? And so that can be proposed something different
Yeah.
and we can do that. I would encourage you to look at the change as far as a development standpoint for properties not on public water. As far as being able to develop
Right.
a urban residential lot or something of that capacity without having to eliminate the 12% grade from their lot size. That is incredibly onerous. So
Mhm.
Has the 12% been on, do you have an idea of when that was adopted?
I think, and only because I've heard, so I have not been able to confirm this because it doesn't have, I've looked at the minutes, but it was, I think, 2008. It went to 12% from around 20 or so. I mean, most standards have 20% or 25%.
So ours is at 12,
Ours is
existing right now, it's at 12.
correct.
And you say that really doesn't fit surround other ordinances, other cities?
Yeah, and it's
around,
incredibly
different?
onerous as far as development standards go.
Okay. You know, and this going to 20 instead of 12,
It's a big
it's in the
jump,
benefit of the developer, you
correct?
know, of the landowner.
Yep.
And so I suppose if I want this thing backed off to 12, somebody's gonna try to shoot me. It's property owner.
Well,
you
right
know.
now it's 12 as it is. And so that is what we've been administering and that's what people are used to.
I mean,
So it's
but we're proposing to change it to 20, so,
correct.
yeah. Okay.
Yep. And I've noticed that most of the comments that we get are concerning water quality and shoreline.
Mhm.
And that's why I'm more than happy, given the direction, to change that to not include that change to apply to riparian lots. It's a
Right.
pretty easy fix right there.
But I'm sure Mr. Rasmussen will be here at the next.
Oh, yeah,
meeting.
I'm sure.
Perhaps we
Yeah.
could include that as a topic for open forum or public hearing. Oh,
But I think if you were to go and make that modification, that
I-
would go a long ways
yes.
towards.
And that's something
know,
that you as a
towards-
planning commission can
it's-
direct me to do. I mean, that's fine. And
I
the
get- I
city
get
council
behind
can
that.
change it one way or the
Yeah,
other.
that's fine.
I think
Yeah.
that's appropriate.
Yeah, I'd like that.
modify from the 12s.
Okay.
Excuse me, leaving it at 12.
12 for riparian.
Correct.
So leaving it 12% for riparian lots.
Right.
Um, and putting it at 20% for all lots, not
Non-repairing.
riparian.
Yeah,
Okay.
Got it.
I think that would go a long ways.
I think so too.
So, okay, and then I had one other item.
Mhm.
And I was just kind of breezing through this stuff last month and it was GIPS and SIPs are what?
I know what you're talking about, the GIP and the
Yeah, that
SIP.
GIPS, yeah,
Mhm.
okay, okay, there was all, and I understand what's going on, and this wouldn't be, even come into play very often, as I saw it. But there's one clause in there that when the whole thing is said and done at the planning commission, when it goes to the council, the chairman of the planning commission signs a certificate of guarantee version, virtually, that everything has been done and submitted and is correct.
Wow.
It's in there.
Yeah.
And I saw it when we were talking about it, but it never got into the discussion that night with Chris. And looking at somebody who's sitting, whether it's Josh or John or anybody else who's the chair and this thing goes to the city and we're all volunteers. You know, we're not staff, nobody's getting paid, the council's not here and the mayor's not here. But to put somebody on the line like Josh in this case, where he's guaranteeing that all the materials and all the everything that's been submitted is correct.
I
That's what
nominate Gary Harris for chair.
My second.
Yeah. But you might check that out. And I may have misinterpreted reading it. I read it 2 or 3 times and I thought, boy, that's
GIP
just,
and the SIP apply, I believe, only to the PDD.
right. I know
And
it gets deeper. and
That
gets
is,
technical.
that was not covered under this initial review. So quite honestly, we didn't even look into that.
Okay,
So
But
as to what, I'm sorry.
PDD.
PD.
but I read that and I read it again and I looked at it and I think, I wonder if Josh is in favor of that.
Has the city attorney done a brief overview of the new ordinance with, well, thoughts like that? I mean, that's something that he would need to.
So none of that was looked into. So that wouldn't be anything that we would be trying to put a spotlight on right now. I know that the provisions for commercial properties, the provisions for resorts, the provisions for a lot is not part of this review. So there's still a lot left to do. And so,
But you know, the city of Nisswa has paid staff, consultants, we got legal, we got attorneys, we got engineers, we got surveyors, we got everybody.
Yep.
We've got administrators and everybody is going through all of the numbers and
would you
See,
like
that-
me to go through that and to,
no, I just think that I think that
Alleviate
that
it.
requirement of the chair having to warrant that all of these numbers and everything submitted is correct, I think should not be in there.
You alleviate it and put it for the liaison for planning and zoning.
You know, I
And-
mean, that would.
We
that's-
met our
This all,
secretary.
this comes out of the city planner, and whoever's the chair, we got the planning commission as a whole voting on this thing. And I don't think, everything is channeled through your office. And all goes to the council. And it just seems not right that he has to guarantee everything's correct.
I agree.
In that particular case.
I agree.
that.
And that's
I-
something that I'd be
I
happy
just
to look
strike that.
into. You want me to look into it and propose?
I'd look at
Okay.
just striking that. Yes,
Okay.
that's what I would like.
I will look into that as well. So I will, as far as those changes to that, I will look into doing the provisions for the 12% to 20% as we discussed earlier. And then also to look into that requirement for the GIP and the
Check it to
SIP.
see if I may be just looking at this and thinking, I'm just overreacting.
Okay.
but-
Yep.
But I know if I was elected chair tonight, I would not like that particular thing, so,
I agree with you
Yeah.
wholeheartedly.
okay,
Well, good findings.
now we can move on.
City planners report.
The shoreland ordinance review, I did pull it from tonight's meeting because we received feedback and a few corrections from the DNR the morning the packet was supposed to go out. I didn't feel that was adequate time to do the corrections for that. So we have moved that to March. I will be including that corrected ordinance in next month's packet for you to review.
Okay.
And then we had 2 permits approved.
It's
Slow
up.
down a little bit.
Yes,
Who
Well,
from the DNR will be reviewing?
it's Dan Petrick from the DNR that I've been working with.
Any other questions, comments?
I have none.
No, thank you.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.